What's going on, guys? It's Alex from RoofTentInsider.com, and today I just wanted to take the opportunity to talk about some of the pros and cons that I've come across when owning my rooftop tent, and just things that I really wouldn't have noticed before buying it, and I think it'd be really valuable to share some of those things with you guys. So we'll kind of do a little bit of back and forth with the pro-con, and we'll get right into that. So the biggest pro by far for me has been just the ability to stay clean in it. And obviously, since it's off of the ground, you don't have to lay the tent in the dirt, worry about clearing a nice area, and you just stay really clean, especially if you live in a rainy area like the Pacific Northwest of the United States is super rainy. So, oftentimes we are camping in wet conditions, and I've just found this to be super valuable and really, really nice, and definitely worth the price that you do have to pay for a rooftop tent. A con that you will come across though is, and I think it's very relatable, if you are looking for a camping spot, especially if you're dispersed camping or not at a campground where you have a specific site assigned to you, then you can't really leave camp because your camp is your car. So if you want to go explore, go check out a lake just a few miles down the road or whatever it is that you want to do, you run the risk of losing your campsite. So I really think this is a huge con, but you have to weigh the benefits and the pros and cons, so it's definitely something to think about. Another pro is safety, and obviously I think in the United States, there's not a lot of little critters that you don't have to worry about, whereas like Australia is definitely an area where this is big for them. But being off the ground, you're safe from all those critters, and it's predators too. I mean, if a bear or a mountain lion or whatever really wants to get you, it can, but nonetheless, you do feel way, way, way more safe up there. The next con is how pricey it is, and I kind of teased it a little bit earlier. This one in particular is actually a cheaper one, and it was about $1,000, and then they can climb all the way up till around $4,000, maybe a little more, depending on what accessories or additions you want to make to it. So they are really, really expensive, unfortunately, but there is a lot of quality that comes with it. And that's just kind of the price you have to pay. I think with a lot of things, you get what you pay for, and rooftop tents are definitely not an exception. So another pro is comfort, and this is simply because you do have a mattress pad built into the tent, which is obviously great, and they're usually anywhere from 2 to 3.5 inches in thickness. And then if you want to make it more comfortable, you can add a mattress topper, and you can usually leave the bedding in there and close it depending on which model you have and how much bedding you have as well. But the big thing for me is definitely just having that nice flat surface to sleep on, I think is more important than anything. When you go camping in a ground tent, you're on a bumpy, uneven, rocky surface, and it's just, I have a hard time sleeping on it, and I can sleep pretty much anywhere. So with this thing though, it's definitely way more comfortable. And I think if you get one for yourself, you would absolutely agree that's a big difference maker. Another negative, unfortunately, is the size limitations. So the biggest rooftop tent you can get can probably hold 4 adults, and it'd be pretty snug. And then you could probably fit 2 adults and 3 children, so 5 people max. With a ground tent, obviously, there's some massive ones you can get. So if you like having extra room in your tent, being able to walk around, which obviously you can't do in this, then a ground tent might be a little bit better for you. However, you can get an annex, which sits right here under the tent once it folds open, and that can fit usually about a queen size mattress in itself. So that's kind of a nice little workaround if you're looking to add more people, if you have a large family, or just going to camp with a big party. So that's something to think about as well. Another pro is it doesn't need to be packed into your vehicle. So if you're going camping, obviously you're gonna have to pack the tent and the mattress into the back of the vehicle. And oftentimes it will take up probably the most room within the tent, or within the vehicle rather. And so I think this is a really, really nice thing because you just don't have to worry about it. It's up there, it's ready to go. You don't have to worry about packing it, and it's all said and done. Another really big con, and this might be one of my least favorite, is just having to enter the tent. So when we go camping, we bring our dog along, and having to bring him up and down inside of the tent is just, it can be really difficult, especially if it's a bigger one. I mean, our dog's 60 pounds, which is a decent size, but definitely not the biggest by any means. So we have to get a little creative, and I can actually link to an article and a video below on how we do that. But yeah, it's just obviously tougher than just opening the door and letting them walk in and out. Another thing that I really like about the rooftop tent is the setup process. So it depends a lot by the model that you get. So hard shells will be insanely quick, about 60 seconds. You just undo a couple of straps and then the gas struts do the rest of the work and they pop open. And then soft shells take a little bit more time. Again, it does depend on the model. But when I'm opening this one, it takes probably, honestly, like 5 minutes or so, and closing it might take a little bit longer. And that's just because you have to, there's a few more steps you have to go through undoing the ladder. It doesn't pop up by itself. And then you have to undo straps and just make sure everything's in proper order. Another downside is you do need a proper vehicle. You can get a really light rooftop tent that's under about 100 pounds and put it on pretty much any vehicle. But the smaller vehicles definitely aren't made for that. And then another restriction is you can pretty much go where your vehicle can get you rather than just throwing a tent on your back and walking it out and setting it up, 100 200 yards away from your car, whatever it is. So if your vehicle is limited in its ability to get places because it doesn't have four-wheel drive, or you just don't feel comfortable using it in that kind of situation, then that could be a setback for you. So it's definitely something I would consider as well. Another pro definitely is, and this is kind of partial to me, but it's fun. It's just really, really cool. All of your friends will probably ask you about it. And when you're camping, and if you are around people, you're definitely gonna get some questions. People are just interested in it because a lot of people actually haven't seen a rooftop tent before, don't even really know what it is, and they just think it's super intriguing, which I agree, it is really cool. And spending the money on it definitely has pushed me to just go camp more and get more use out of it, which has actually been really good for us. So it's something I've really enjoyed, and overall it's just been more fun than a ground tent. So it's kind of an intangible factor, but I think it counts in my mind. Last but not least, the one negative that I'll wrap up with is just the fact that it is so heavy. This one in particular is not too bad. I think it's 116 pounds exactly, but they can get all the way up there to 200 pounds. And the bigger the tent, the more heavy it is typically. But it's a problem if you need to get it on and off the tent frequently, especially for our vehicle is about 8 feet in the air. So it's really high up there. So we pretty much just leave it on year round. It's just easier that way. And if you don't have a place to store it, that's also can be an issue. Another thing is the gas mileage will take a hit on your vehicle. So you can expect 1 to 2 miles per gallon to be affected on it. And that's just simply if you see, obviously by looking at it, it's kind of a brick up there. And ours unfortunately sits a little bit higher than we would like it to due to the rack, but that's just the situation we have. So that added drag on the freeway just creates more air resistance and a less aerodynamic drive. So that's something to consider as well. I don't think it's a deal breaker by any means, but these are kind of all of the factors that we've seen as we've owned our rooftop tent, some of the major pros and cons. So hopefully this helps you in deciding whether you want to buy a rooftop tent, if you don't want to buy a rooftop tent. If you guys have any questions, please comment below. If you guys are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. And if you found it to be valuable, hit that like, it really helps as well. If you guys are more interested in some pros and cons of a rooftop tent, I will add an article below that contains many, many more, just going a little bit more in depth. And then if you head over to rooftentinsider.com as well, you can kind of just read some of our buyer's guides articles, which will help clarify maybe some of the questions that you have that I didn't get to in this video and you might be curious about. With that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.